Hello and welcome to my League Start video plan thing that I'm gonna do. So for 3.22, I am planning on starting with Cold Dot. I've not personally played Cold Dot for quite a while, so there's been many modifications to different ascendancies as well as the skill tree. I was originally planning on Detonate Dead, but I tried it and there's just certain things that I don't like about it. And I know that with Cold Dot you can scale it much more end game, and I think the Cold Dot will be more up my playstyle super late into the game. And I've planned my tree to be a little bit more lenient towards potentially pivoting to CI or low life. So I know the build currently, it doesn't look like it has much HP, but in the final PoB, which I'll show after a map, I do get to around 150% life, and there's definitely the potential to swap to CI. Currently I do have Whispers of Doom, however, I am not using any other curse. And for the auras, the only auras that I'm really using right now that actually do anything are Grace and uh, Malevolence. I do have some pretty decent gear for like League Start scenario. This wand is not really that great. It was literally just a wand and I slapped the essence on it. It's either an essence or an elk or something to just get more spell damage because I used a wand from like Act 2 all the way up until now. The character just sitting in hideout has 12,000 evasion, and the final PoB that I've come up with should be able to get around 40k. I should be able to basically get evade cap. So I'll run a map. This is my second map. So hopefully it goes as well as the first one. I'll try to do the metamorph, but I honestly don't know. I'll probably try to finish doing an Exarch and Eater on this character before the League launch, just so I can kind of know for certain how I'm going to try to gear the character up. There's a couple of different options that I've considered when it comes to the defensive layers of this build, and I think one of the big things that I may end up doing is having a Blasphemy Curse, but I'm not quite certain yet. And for my passive skill tree, I'll include a link, a tiny URL to it, because the links get so long with the PoE planner. But I am considering doing Blight and Expedition. I've never really League started Blight as a form to build up like currency and whatnot. However, you can get a lot of like fractured items and general like gumball currency, and then expedition and essences, and then June missions to fill up like the rest of your gear. And I think that'll work for me pretty well. Yeah. Pretty cozy mapping experience. Let's just make this as hard as possible. I'll do the unique, just in case. Oh yeah, no problem. It's just slow. A Rhyme Gaze would go really, really far with this build, and the, what is it called? The Essence Glove. I don't remember the exact essence off the top of my head. I want to say Horror, but I'm probably wrong. So for the passive tree, this build would be taking advantage of Wind Dancer down the road, and I would like to get a Lightning Coil into the build. I don't necessarily care too much about the ES. For adding on extra life, there is the option to come down here and pick up Devotion, because these points, just picking up Devotion and not the bonus life node, is one less point than taking Melding and coming down through here. Because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this would give you 16% life, and this is 7, 3, so 16. It's the same amount of life. The ES, it doesn't really matter because you're most likely going to be able to reach 1.5k to 2k ES no problem. So that's my general thought process with like adding on more life. And then you can also come down here and pick up Blood Drinker, since that's just 2 travel points. That would be obviously much higher level. And then also Resourcefulness for 2 points. And then late game, you could drop the Resourcefulness, this travel point, Cold-Hearted Calculation, this little elemental damage node, and just pick up this end node. And then these 2 points and these 2 points, you could do something like coming over here, picking up this jewel socket, picking up this jewel socket, or picking up this jewel socket if you pathed over this way for Devotion. And these little like strength nodes on the corner, the extra dexterity down here, getting the extra dex over here, as well as coming over here to get Wind Dancer, all of these nodes, and then having access to 30 point nodes for tattoos, I think is the play. I did consider coming through here, grabbing Melding, coming over here and doing like the Elementalist pathing to come up through here to get out and to get to your auras and your damage. But it's just so much extra points, and I'm not certain if that's necessarily of value to me, because I can end up basically getting a bit more quality of life and being able to also come down here by not spending a lot of points traveling through Witch and Templar. And a lot of those builds, they also come over here, pick up things like Holy Dominion, Light of Divinity, because spell damage obviously scales Cold Dot. So yeah, just things I'm thinking about. Also, picking up EO, I don't feel like it's worth it. 3 points for situational damage. I would basically constitute it as like a 10% increase in damage for this build, and you could spend 3 points, come up here and try to get Heart of Ice, and honestly that would probably end up being more consistent damage than Elemental Overload. Plus you would have to drop Controlled Destruction, which is such a high, more percent damage multiplier. So that's my thought process with the build. For leveling, I did come up and come through here, and then I grabbed Blood Siphon. I hadn't come down here until a little bit later on, and then I basically came up here, I grabbed Growth and Decay, I grabbed Snowforged, I grabbed Arcane Expanse, and by that point the damage started to actually feel decent for Cold Dot, and I had Cold Snap by the time I got Arcane Expanse. And then I just basically came up here and I went all the way down here and I just grabbed Sovereignty, and then I started filling out the stuff off to the right hand side up here and down here. I think I went down here first. I believe I went down here first because I needed some of these stats, like the little bit of dex, the little bit of strength. And then I think I did this last in like the Act 9-10 time frame. So yeah, that's how I leveled it, and it seems to be doing pretty good. Obviously just using a Stibnite Flask because the more evasion, and then the Smoke Cloud scales your evasion a little bit. So running around in maps, it doesn't feel like you get hit too often, and when you do have a little bit of buffer with the ghost dance. So I think, at least for now, it's going to be fine. I think red maps and with some of the reduced modifiers and stuff like that, I do believe some of that would be a bit troublesome, but we'll see. Just don't roll your maps and don't click alters that give you reduced global defenses for your frenzies, and I think you'll be fine. Guess real quick, I'll show the PoB. Alright, here we are with the PoB, and like I said, you could drop stuff like that, pick up stuff like that. You can take whatever mastery you would like here. If you need the spell suppression and you have like full evasion gear, take the spell suppression node. You can take whatever spell suppression mastery you would prefer. For caster mastery, I would recommend the 6% increased cast speed. Big reason why I came over here and grabbed Arcane Expanse is because I grabbed it on that wheel. Another thing is, in the endgame tree, I do take the 12% RMR here, or mana reservation efficiency. The Aura Res allows us to run Defiance Banner, Valkyrie's Malevolence, and then a Clarity as well. I'm not certain if the Clarity is necessarily worth it, and there's potential where I may drop Malevolence and run Determination and then use a VMS, but I'm not certain. And with this build, as you can see, if you've been hit by an attack recently, you would spike all the way up to 90% evade chance, and some of this gear is not really the best. Malice, I think, would be the best in slot, but I do think a good rare with like RMR or mana reservation efficiency, as well as like some other stats, would come close. So, some things to think about. This PoB, it's not with like anything enabled really, and I've messed around with it quite a bit. The weapon is just literally everything I had on that wand, plus the +1 of all cold, and then 20 cold dot craft. So very reasonably able to get something similar to this. Yeah, just random stuff. This shield just comes with spell damage, which is obviously just gonna scale your dot more. So, yeah. Things to look out for would be a Scorch on boots. That's gonna help your DPS, and then getting the Essence gloves with cold exposure and then cold damage over time multiplier, or you can get cold damage leeches life, I believe, as well on your gloves. And then for the chest piece, just get aura effect efficiency on the implicits. And there's also the option, I think it's probably the better option, is to just end up using a lightning coil. Like, it's just so much damage reduction. Obviously, it's not going to work because the res is way off. But yeah, that's my plan for that. And I'll have a link to the passive skill tree for the Atlas, but yeah, I just plan on rushing a lot of stuff. And like I said, with this thing, there is the option to drop a lot of these life nodes, pick up some of the ES, you can drop these life nodes, pick up more ES. These are basically just hybrid nodes. You can drop that guy there, and then come down here, pick that up. You could probably figure out a way to pick this up as well. And you would most likely not want to pass through the blood siphon. So I don't know exactly how I would go about doing all of this. Maybe coming down and pathing through here, or pathing through here and starting from up here. I'm not quite certain how I would do this, or the aura reservation as well as the aura scaling that I would utilize. There's also the possibility that we solve some of the aura res by converting some of the int from traveling up on the top side into aura reservation efficiency. So yeah, things to think about. And I don't think this is necessarily super worth it, but I know a lot of people would take it. I think it's really worth it on Occultist, but I don't know if it's necessarily worth it on Trickster against like endgame bosses, because I don't think I'm going to freeze that often, but I'll figure it out when I actually play the build into endgame. So yeah, that's it. That is the league start. Day 1 plans, day 2 plans type of thing. I'll be streaming my whole adventure, and by the way, guess I should probably show this. Let me hide the POB real quick. So my slash played, it was like just above 6 hours, like 6 hours and like 3 minutes or something for me to get to mapping. So it wasn't too bad. It was pretty easy. Even someone who hasn't played Gold Dot since like before Trickster became whatever this is, like the leveling was pretty easy. I would say Act 1 through 3 is kind of and then it picks up around Act 4. But yeah, that's it. That's it for this video. I'll be streaming day 1 on YouTube. Come say hi if you want to. I'll be streaming a lot for the first week and then taper off from there. So yeah, see you then. And good luck on your league start.